Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. How are you doing today? I have a question for you. So, what would decide you to go solar? Let's say you've been approached by, let's say, an installer, right? And they say that companies say that they want to go, they want to design and bring solar into your house, into your businesses. So, what is that will decide you? What would drive you to go forward with the decision? Do you have an idea? Is it money? Or is it only money? Or is it something else? That's the question I want to discuss today because that's what many have actually asking themselves. And especially if you're a developer, you like to find out about this response because you want to know what are the lever you can press onto to make sure that people can move on with your proposal. This is a question I'm very much going to be talking to you today. So definitely stay tuned, my friends. So excited to be here with you today. So my name is Tony Q. I'm the founder and CEO of Renewables in Africa. We are your global clean energy champion. So what is our role? It's very simple in this channel. It's to make sure that we demystify the renewable energy sector for you. What does it mean exactly? Oh, two things. If you're and then you're looking for, let's say you have a company, like for example, what you can see behind you here, and you're looking to go solar because you want to have a bit of green energy powering your operation, but you don't know where you can find the information. In here, we definitely will give you all the information that you need. You can look at some of our videos. I'm sure it's going to be very, very interesting. So if you're an investor and if you're a load of cash, load of money that you want to invest somewhere in the sector, again, we don't have any right information because you're not maybe a tester in the sector. You pretty much do. In here, you find as well the right information that will be of interest for you. Or if you're a professional, like I used to be more than 10 years ago, and you say, hey, this looks like a cool industry. Not only I'm helping the planet to be a better one, but I'm also learning something new and and it feels exciting for me. But how can I make sure I get there? In here as well, you'll find all the information you're looking for. So what I'm looking for you guys is very simple. It's just to make sure that not only you can listen to us, but you can subscribe definitely on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook. But now we have a fifth channel we have to broadcasting from. It is Telegram. Definitely subscribe to all of those channels and leave a comment. Leave a comment, leave a question, tell us what you would like us to talk about, and just share that with as much people as possible. Is it correct? Excellent. Great. So the question today, it's talk something very simple, right? Looking at what is the main driver. So what are the driver that actually will would turn customer or will lead customer to go solar? Most of the time we think about money. Yeah, money. Definitely money is part of it. But the question I'm asking you, do you think that money is the only driver? Or is everybody? That's what you want to find out. Why is it important to find out about this question? Because if you are, for example, a developer like Renewables in Africa, we also are. So you may or may not know that, but developing projects, for businesses that want to go solar. For example, if you're tired having high energy costs, obviously, and you're looking for an alternative solution, another solution to power your business, clearly we can work out. We can work this with. So we've done it, for example, one of our customers in Nigeria. We're looking at the project, for example, now in Benin and also other countries. Let's come back to that and say, it's important. It's important because, as I say, if you're an entrepreneur, a solo entrepreneur, so you need to know what actually is driving your customer to go solar. Because if you know that, that can influence greatly the way you approach the question with them, the way you're discussing with them, right? It's important to know these questions. And I know most of when you talk to people, they're going to say, yeah, the price. Yes, it's definitely something very important. But is it the only driver? That's what we're going to find out. But before that, I'd like to know from you, listening to me, what is that you think the drivers, the model for people to go solar, right? Wherever they are, where it could be in Europe, it could be in Africa, it could be in Americas, according to you, to your experience, or maybe you're thinking, what do you think are the drivers to go solar, right? That's the question we're going to respond again today, right? That's good. I can see people are watching us. Thank you for watching us. We love it. We are very pleased with it. And like I said, just contribute and drop a comment, drop a feedback, and we can look at it and make sure that we can respond to that. And before I finish this conversation, feel free to leave a question live, right? So I can respond to it as I'm talking to you. So let's go back into the conversation. And before we actually respond to this question, whether money is the only drivers for customers, it's fair to say that we need to look at the customer themselves. Is it only one type of customers, or do we have multiple type of customers? And in here, let me just be a little bit more specific, right? Because I'm sure one of the first customers we can think about is residential market. That's great. But in this particular discussion, if you allow me, let me focus on the non-residential customers. So if I'm asking you the question first, so there are three categories of customers, the non-residential customers that are out there, right? Just to make it simple, because we can always make it a lot more complicated, but that's not the point here. Because the whole idea of Renewable in Africa channel here, like I say, is to demystify the sector for you, right? So we keep things relatively, but if you want to go a little more complex, feel free to reach out to us. We're very happy just to bounce ideas, right? And tell you what we think. So there are three types of customers that I can see out there. The first type of customers would be the utility companies, right? Those are the big electricity companies, right? So you're very much familiar with them. Wherever you are in the country, chances there's definitely a big company. Sometimes they had the monopoly that you will see for some countries in Africa, other places where the emerging markets, right, have the monopoly. But in mature markets, it tends to be up and the market, right? You have many companies that's providing that. So you have the big utility companies, and that's where you have the utility scale project. Talking about project here, what, 10 megawatt upwards, right? So that's what we're talking about. That's the grid, essentially, yeah? Just to make sure that it makes it simple for you to understand. So that's the first type of customer that I can see. So what are the second? Yeah, we're talking about non-residential customer here, just to make sure I'm also very clear with you guys. So what are the second type of customer that we could see here? Anybody has an idea? If yes, feel free, like I said, to drop a comment. But if I don't see a comment, I would imagine that you just listen, you're just listening to me, and you enjoy listening to me, and you'd rather have me give you the answer, which I'm very happy to do so. So the second type of customer here are what I would call public entities, right? That would be your council, your government aid. So those are public entities. They own buildings, with large roof. It could also be your school, your admin building, your hospital, your public hospital, so on and so forth, right? These are the second category of customers. I separate them from the utilities, because utilities is very much, those are people that are looking at that are connected to the grid, are the main customer of the grid, yeah? So the second, like I say, is a public entities, own buildings with large roofs, school, admin buildings, hospitals, so on and so forth. That's the second type of customer. The third type of customers, again, I'm keeping it very simple on purpose, just to make sure that it's easier for you to connect and to understand. The third type of customer are corporations. Those are all the companies with large roof, not large roof, and that have land available or not land available. Yeah, these are the customers that we see. So if you now can see, oh, babe, that's great, a comment here. Let's see. Brilliant. So, Babatunde, great to see you, right? I appreciate that. Make sure that you drop me a question. I promise you I will respond to that. So, what I say, so those are the three type of customer that we have. So we have the utility, so that's a big project, about the 10 megawatt scale. And then you have the public entities we're talking about here, everybody owning public buildings with large roofs, schools, admin building, hospital. That will be usually your council, your cooperative, your government agencies. I mean, and so on and so forth. I'm sure you can name them as well yourself. And then the third group of customer will be your corporation, or another way, businesses, right? These are companies with a large roof or available lands, and they could potentially go solar. So the reason I wanted to sort of distinguish those three types, those three categories, is because, believe it or not, but the motivation to go solar will be slightly different for some of them, right? Will be slightly different. It's not exactly all the same. And this is what I want to talk about today, right? So the question that we have is money the only driver for a customer to go solar? We're going to respond to that. But let me just break it down into each category that I've described to you. So let's go back first of all to the utility, right? Those are the big companies that I mentioned, right? So connected to the grid. So normally their motivation. So if you happen to be a developer or an entrepreneur building a project that you want to sell to the utility, to be your off taker, in other words, your end client, right? So you should know that usually what they're looking to do, they want to go solar, right? So usually I could see, especially for emerging market, I could see three type of reason and motivation. So first of all, they want to generate additional power because in some of those countries, many of these countries, like I said, there is a power gap. Yeah. So meaning that the demand clearly sometimes exceed the supply. And the idea is clearly we need some additional supply to plug that gap. The question, so what should we plug that gap with? Is it fossil fuel or is that clean energy? So as you know, most of the time these days, especially in this current time, the balance tends to be tilting towards clean energy, and obviously for very good reason. So adding it's a good motivation for these companies. So a second motivation for them would be obviously to reducing cost, back to your money issue, right? So they want to reduce energy because, as you know now, solar become very, very, especially in the utility scale arena, right? Where obviously you have economy of scale, it's going to really dropping. I've done another live in this video where I was giving some ideas of what are the costs these days for solar in the utility scale market. So that you go back and watch that if you haven't seen it before. And so that's the second reason. Third reason for you to go solar is to comply with the international and national regulations, because obviously has most of the country in the planet have subscribed to agreement like the Paris Agreement, in that they have to respect that. They have to put in place local regulation to meet their commitment, the international commitment. And as they passing the international, as they obviously passing those laws and regulations to make sure that they meet their commitment, they would then transfer it back to their local entities, local companies, to make sure that it is respected. Because the only way for the country to respect that is to those businesses to follow those guidelines, right? So those are the three ways. So you want to know about that. So basically, as I say, for utility scale, yes, reducing costs is one of them, but they also want to add additional power, because if you don't add additional power, the economy can be functioning very well, right? So important to know. So those are the three reasons for utility scale: generate more power, reduce costs, but also with international and national regulation, right? So if you happen to be in this sector, this is what you want to know. Now, let's move on to the second category, which is the public entities as I described, right? They own building with a large roof. We're talking about the school, we're talking about your hospital, so we're talking about, any government agency that that owns a premise, right? So what are the motivation? So it's similar to the utility at the difference that they're not necessarily looking to add additional power, because not most of the time these guys, they already get from the grid, right? So additional power, that's the job of the grid, to give them power. They don't worry about that. Main motivation usually I can see, right, is to reduce the electricity costs, right? So because everybody is also always interested in energy costs at now where inflation is going off the roof, where you have gas prices very high, so oil prices very high. So if you happen to have power that is provided by fossil fuel, obviously you could be paying high tariff. And if you know that with solar, you have a chance to bring it down a little bit by 20%, 25% in some cases, obviously you're going to be interested. So definitely money, it's a big driver for them. But the other thing, especially for public entities, is that they are connected to government, right? Because like I say, there tends to be government agency, and as such, right, they need to comply with carbon emission targets. Absolutely. They need to comply with carbon emission targets, because if they don't comply with carbon emission target, guess what, right? They're going to be punished by government, especially if government is their owner, right? They need to follow clearly the instruction. So if your customer is one of those agencies, so if you know that, you know how to approach them and you know how to push the button, right, to make sure that you can convince them. So that's the kind of information I'm wanting. So I'm hoping up until now things are very clear for you and it makes sense, right? If it makes sense, that's great. Definitely do like Baba Tunde, drop me a comment, me a question, and I'd be happy to respond to that, right? So there'll be a time for question here very soon. Let me continue, sir. Yeah. So and we can see where we get to. So the third group, which is the corporation, the businesses, people with a large roof. So what is their motivation? So their motivation, it's similar to the two other groups, but there's something different. So definitely they're looking to plug the power outage gap here. And it's very important, especially for business, because I usually say, so if you then to a customer and you don't have power, let's imagine you're watching football, you have Real Madrid, you know, what's going to be the final? It's I think Real Madrid, Liverpool, right? You're watching that halfway through. Benzema is a power cut. You're going to be pissed off, right? You're going to be very pissed off. The thing is, most of the time, that's where it's going to stop. You're going to be pissed off, but there's nothing really you can do, right? So if you have money, obviously you want to go sold out. But most of the time, they will obviously they'll be ranting for a good few minutes, maybe a few days, but then that's it. But for a business, you can't just stop there. Let's imagine, for example, I have an order that I've committed to fulfill, in the next 2 to 3 days, and I'm getting the factory, to work day and night to make sure that we can deliver on that. Then all of a sudden, you have a power cut. You just can't say to your customer, "Well, listen, I'm gonna be late because I have power cuts and so on and so forth." Yeah, that would, I'm sure, maybe for the first, second time, but third time, guess what? That customer very much be looking for somebody else, right? So this is what I'm saying. For businesses, it's even more urgent. Plugging the power, the power outage gap. That's what they really also look and that's the space where we are operating, because we're talking to businesses and they tell they stop. And in fact, many of those already have an alternative solution, which is called the diesel generator, right? You obviously here with that. And the whole idea of going solar is to see how you can actually displace part of this diesel, if not all of it, and to replace that with solar, which is free as long as you can capture that joy. So plugging the power outage gap, it's a big motivation for the businesses, but it's not all. One that obviously makes sense as well for everybody is the money, right? So reducing electricity costs, because going off the roof now, as I mentioned, and if you look at as well the escalation rate for many countries, so especially in the emerging markets, it can go from anything between 5% to 20%. It depends where you are exactly, right? And if in these kind of scenarios, obviously you'll prefer to go solar because you have solar for free. And most of the time, if you've invested in the solution outright, you own it already, so it's already on the balance sheet and you can go on. So now how to make sure that you can recoup your money. Or maybe if you went into a PPA arrangement, or maybe it's an arrangement, at least when you negotiated the contract with your provider, you have an idea how much you're going to be paying year on year, as long as you're in contract with them, right? So whereas when you connect it to the grid, you don't always know. And in some of these countries, they won't even tell you before. They say that, pretty much the day before, even after that, say, hey, there has been an increase. Take it. What can you do? Are you going to disconnect from the grid? Or you can't. Just like that, right? So reducing costs, it's a big driver for them. But there's a third one that was not mentioned for any of the two groups before, the utility scale or maybe the public entities. So the third motivation for businesses is actually CSR, corporate social responsibility, or ESG, right? It's very important these days to demonstrate that, yeah, you are a green business, you do your bit to respond to the climate change crisis, because that becomes a very important factor for pretty much all the customer. There's one thing that has sort of come out. I don't know if you realize. So if you can do so, you can do some study yourself. For many companies, especially the big companies, there is a new type of role that has emerged that wasn't there before. It's a CEO role. Yeah. Do you know what it means? Whoa, it means corporate sustainability officer. Yes, big companies now, if not all the big companies now, will have a CSO. Yeah, and quite new. Before we didn't have that. We had a CEO, COO, CMO, but we didn't really have CSO. But now you have CSO, and it shows you how important it is. Even for communication purposes, you want to demonstrate to your customer, right, what you are doing. If again you're an entrepreneur selling solar solutions, you want to know all those different reasons. So does it make sense to you? Excellent. That's great. I know I've talked quite extensively, so you may not have remember everything, but what I have, because actually what I've described to you, it's part of our solar entrepreneur course that we giving to people, and I have a page here, one of the page, you can see that table where obviously it's talking about the different group and the different kind of motivation, and that's simply what I have been describing for you. So what I'm going to be doing, because some of you may be interested by that, I'm probably going to drop in the comments later on a link to that course if some of you want to take it. But this is what I wanted to talk to you about. So that table will kind of summarize that. Yeah, the different kind of customers that we had, different categories, and for each of those categories, what is the motivation? Very important to get to know that, because if you know that, as I say, you know how to position yourself, you know how to talk to them, and you know how to push things forward, right? Is it cool? Excellent. That's great. That's what I want you guys to know. Now I'm just gonna see whether there is a couple of questions or comments from you guys. I have not so far apart from reaction from Baba Tunde, but let's take a quick look. Okay, so that's the time where I'm going for the reaction. So Baba Tunde, thank you. By the way, what is he saying? Hey, Baba Tunde say, thanks for the opportunity. This is insightful. Excellence. What we want to do here to demystify the sector for you. I don't know, Baba Tunde, if you're already in the sector. If you are, that's great. Tell us what you think, whether that makes sense. And like I say, it's to provide information so that we can make sure that it is not hidden from people, right? And now you can go forward and do something with it, because that's what I'm saying. If you have the information but you keep it for yourself, it's of no use. But if you get that information and make sure that it becomes useful for people, even for yourself, to then be able to provide better solutions, then that's great. That means we are doing a job. Excellent. And that's why I wanted to say. So I don't know if there is any more question that I've seen in here, but that's fine anyway. That's usually you have lots of questions below. So I just want to make sure that I can communicate that to you. So to respond in conclusion to the question, money the only driver for customer to go solar? I would say, surprisingly, yes. No. No, simply because I have been laying out the different motivation depending of the category you belong to, whether you are a utility, whether you are a public entity that's owned by government, or whether you're a corporation or a business, right? So I've laid out a different motivation that will get this guy to go solar or to consider solar, right? In that sense, I would say no. Money is not the only driver for people to go solar. Now, there's got to be a yes, right? Yes, because if you look at all those motivation, if you look closely, they're all linked to money, right? They're definitely all linked to money. Let me just look at that. So if you want additional power because there's a power gap, the reason you want to do that is because you're not matching the demand. And if you're not matching the demand, you're losing customers, right? So you're losing money here. So definitely you want to make sure that you have enough power to make sure that you can capture that money. If we do, that's obvious, right? So you're spending too much and you want to see how can I recover some money here, make some savings. Yes. Comply with international regulation and national regulation. So nowadays, so especially if they're binding and not respecting, guess what? You're going to have some fines. So you're going to pay some money here. But if they're not binding, at least you have your reputation, that, right? And everybody cares about reputation, especially serious countries, right? So if your reputation is, that can have an impact in your business in that you're negotiating. So you may be losing some money here. That's what I'm saying. Another way that I've not mentioned. So obviously CSR, very obvious. So that has become a competitive advantage. If your customer are not doing something for the climate, especially if it's important for them, guess what? They're just going to go to your competitor that's doing something. Again, you're losing money here. So that's what I'm saying. Yes, actually, the response could to this question could also be yes. So people that say no and yes, they kind of right? But ultimately, to be honest, if they were to pick only one reason, I would say yes is the only driver for people to go solar. One way or I'm hoping that was really reduced to you. Ladies and gentlemen, oh, let me look at that. So I thought I didn't have any more questions, but oh, look, like all of a sudden, all those of questions. Let me just go to some of them. So we had, oh yeah, look at that. Yeah. I think cost is a major driver for solar procurement here in Nigeria. You have major people who want to go solar, or even people who want a 24/7 solar system that solar is considered as a ostentatious commodity here in Nigeria. Yeah, that's true. So, and that's the reason, if you want testimony, that I'm doing live like that, because by providing you the different kind of motivation that people have, that helps you to play with that, to better present the solution to them and find a solution. I know exactly what you're talking about, because say we are also a developer, right? So a project, and by the way, we also have a project recently that we have closed in Nigeria, right? So, and we go into this exact same question. It's about demonstrating the business case, and there's a lot of education that goes into that. Yeah. So if you know the motivation, if you know how people are thinking, then you may have an idea on how to present it back to them, right? So that's great. So like I said, we can talk about that a little bit more. Yeah, especially if you have a live project. So Babatunde say, I work in a hospital, excellent. Yeah. So private, I don't know. But let's see. As the topic of this discussion, I believe too much money is involved. We want to go solar because the price fossil fuels and sustainable. Any advice on how to go? Well, Babatunde, is very simple. Okay, so I will advise you to reach out to us. We definitely have approached some hospital, discussing with them. Usually, the sometimes the challenge could be with those public entities is the decision making, because the decision making process is not fast. Because sometimes people can see that yes, it makes sense. It's clearly a cheaper solution, especially if it's designed properly. However, the decision making process, especially if it's especially connected with let's say the politics side, so it become a little bit challenging. Yeah, and I'm sure Babatunde, you know that with Nigeria going to election next year, so that tends to sometimes slow down some of these decisions. And by the way, this is not only the prerogative of Nigeria; that's actually true in all of the country. By the way, so when you come into election stage, some all of a sudden some decisions are slowed down, especially if you're into the pub. So that's what I wanted to say. Oh, by the way, guys, thank you very much for your reaction, your comment. We love it. We appreciate that. Like I say, keep on feeding that, sharing that. If you have any topic you want to discuss, let us know. Share this video as well, and that'd be great. Yeah, because that's what we like to do. So I don't think there is any more questions, but we're actually very good, very grateful to have those comments from both Babatunde and Testimony. So I was just gonna we're probably gonna leave it there, because I don't think there is any more question unless I've missed it. Let me just look at that very quickly. I do not think so. And also let me know, because if one of you want to intervene in this live and and then and want to share the feedback, I'll be more than happy to invite you and to take your to take your point of view, and we can move ahead with that. Is that great? Excellent. So I think we've gone through most of it, and then it's time for us to go back to our usual agenda for the rest of the day, rest of the evening. And for me, as usual, it's a pleasure to be talking to you. And as I usually say, may the sun be with you. I'll talk to you next Sunday. So be there, guys. Thank you.